There is a lot of bad advice out there, and I'm about to tell you what most real estate agents won't. If a real estate agent ever tells you, now is a great time to buy, or we'll just price it high and see what happens, there's a very real chance that advice has nothing to do with what's best for you, and everything to do with getting a deal done. And here's the problem. A lot of advice that buyers and sellers hear sounds good on the surface. It sounds confident. It sounds professional. But when you really break it down, it is not always honest, and it is definitely not always in the client's best interest. Sometimes it is outdated advice. Sometimes it is lazy advice. And sometimes, if we're being honest, it is just a sales tactic dressed up as guidance. So in this video, I want to call out some of the biggest lies buyers and sellers are still being told by real estate agents. Not to bash agents, and not because every real estate agent is bad, because that's obviously not true. There are a lot of really good real estate agents out there, but there are also a lot of things being said in this industry that can cost people real money. And buyers and sellers need to know how to spot them. And for any agents watching this, here's my little public service announcement. A little honesty goes a long way. You want a good business, a solid reputation, and repeat and referral clients? Tell people the truth. It's not that complicated. Let's start with one that buyers hear all the time. If an agent tells you, now is a great time to buy, you need to pause for a second, because there's no universal great time to buy a house. There's only a time that makes sense for you. And that depends on your finances, your job stability, your savings, your monthly payment, and whether this decision actually fits your life right now. That's the part that matters most, and it's the part that often gets skipped. We saw this play out in a big way over the past few years. Buyers were told prices were rising, rates were changing, and if they didn't act now, they were going to miss their window. And yes, some of that turned out to be true, but a lot of people also rushed into decisions they weren't fully prepared for. They stretched their budgets, they drained their savings, they locked themselves into payments that looked fine on paper but felt very different month to month. And that's the issue. Urgency makes people act fast, but it doesn't always make them act smart. The right time to buy has nothing to do with headlines or predictions. It comes down to one simple question. Are you ready, financially and personally, to own that home comfortably? If the answer isn't an emphatic yes, then it's not a great time, no matter what anyone says. This one almost always shows up right after the first one. You can always refinance later. And on paper, that sounds reasonable. But in reality, it's one of the most dangerous assumptions that buyers can make. Because refinancing only works if the numbers work. Rates have to come down enough. The savings has to justify the cost. And most importantly, it has to actually happen. We've already seen how unpredictable rates can be. They moved fast in both directions over the past few years, and while everyone likes to assume they'll drop again, there's no guarantee of when, how much, or if it will be enough to make a refinance worth it. So if you're buying a home based on what the payment might be later on, you're taking a risk. The safer approach is simple. Buy the home only if the payment works for you today. If you can refinance later, great, that's a bonus. But it should never be the plan that makes the deal make sense. This one has been around forever, and somehow it still hasn't gone away. A lot of buyers out there still believe they need 20% down to buy a home. And in some cases, they're still being told that by agents. That's just not accurate. Now let's be clear about something. Putting 20% down can absolutely make things easier. It can lower your monthly payment. It can help you avoid private mortgage insurance, and it can make your offer look stronger in certain situations. There are real advantages to it. But that does not mean it's required. There are conventional loan options with as little as 3% or 5% down, FHA loans at 3.5%, VA loans with 0 down for eligible buyers. There are real paths to homeownership that don't involve waiting years to save up 20%. And here's where this becomes a problem. When buyers think they need the full 20%, they delay. They sit on the sidelines. They wait longer than they need to, sometimes while prices and rents continue to move against them. So yes, if you have 20% and it makes sense for your situation, great. It can absolutely put you in a stronger position. But if you don't, that should not be the thing that stops you from even exploring your options. Because the idea that you have to have it, it's just not true. This is one of the quickest ways to turn a good purchase into an expensive mistake. If an agent tells you that waiving your inspection is no big deal, or that you have to do it to compete, you need to take a step back. Because inspections exist for a reason. Most homes are going to have issues. some are minor, some are not. And without an inspection, you are essentially agreeing to take on whatever problems come with the home without fully knowing what they are. And I've seen how that plays out. Buyers get the house, they're excited, everything feels great. And then a few months later, things start to break. Repair bills start showing up. Roof repairs, water damage, plumbing problems, electrical updates, foundation concerns. These things could have been identified up front, negotiated, or at the very least planned for. Now, if you're in a competitive situation, I understand the pressure. You want your offer to stand out, but there are smarter ways to do that than removing one of your biggest protections entirely. You can shorten timelines, you can do informational inspections, you can structure your offer strategically, but just waiving it and hoping for the best, it's not strategy. That's gambling. If you're finding this video useful, do me a favor and hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell so you never miss another video. I try to put these videos together to help buyers, sellers, and homeowners make smarter decisions, not rushed ones. And that only works if the right people actually see them. Now let's talk about sellers for a bit. If an agent tells you to list high and adjust the price later, that might sound like a safe approach, but it usually backfires. Here's what actually happens. When a home hits the market, there is a window, usually the first couple of weeks, where it gets the most attention. Buyers are watching, new listing alerts go out. That's when you have the best chance to create momentum. But if the price is too high, buyers don't engage, showings are slow, offers don't come in, and now your listing starts to sit. Week 2 turns into week 3. Buyers start to assume something is wrong with the house, even if there is nothing wrong. And now, instead of competing offers, you're dealing with hesitation. Then the price reductions start. And here's the part most people don't realize. By the time you reduce the price to where it should have been originally, you've already lost the advantage of being a new listing. Instead of standing out, you're getting lost in the crowd. Now you're chasing the market instead of leading it. That's why pricing correctly from the start matters so much. It's not about testing the market. It's about positioning your home to attract the strongest interest right away. This is another one that sellers love hearing. Oh, you'll easily get over asking price. And look, sometimes that does happen, but it's never guaranteed. Getting over asking price is not about luck, and it's definitely not about just picking a number and hoping buyers compete for it. Those days are in the past. It's about how the home is priced, how it shows, how it's marketed, and what the current demand looks like in that specific price range and location. If those pieces line up, you can absolutely create a situation where buyers compete and multiple offers are coming in. But if they don't, pricing too high and expecting multiple offers is just wishful thinking. So instead of focusing on what you hope happens, focus on what the data supports. What have similar homes actually sold for recently? How long did they take to sell? How competitive were those listings? There are trends that we look for when finding the right price, because that's where the real answer is. This one sounds great on both sides. For buyers, it's I have access to off-market deals. For sellers, it's I already have buyers. We don't even need to list your home. And again, sometimes that's true, but a lot of times it's more of a sales angle than a strategy. Because the reality is, the more exposure your home gets, the more buyers see it. The more buyers see it, the more competition you create. And competition is what drives stronger offers. When you limit exposure, you limit your options. So while these off-market deals can work in certain situations, they should be the exception, not the plan. You always want to understand what you are gaining and what you are potentially giving up. Open houses are one of those things that sound more powerful than they actually are. Do open houses help? Yes, they do. They bring in traffic. They create convenience. They allow multiple buyers to walk through the home in a short period of time instead of scheduling a bunch of individual showings. For sellers, that can be a big win because it limits how often you have to leave the house and keep everything perfectly staged. So there is value there. But here's where things get a little misleading. Open houses are usually not the reason a home sells. The real drivers are pricing, presentation, marketing, and overall demand in that price range and location. That's what actually creates offers and competition. The open house is just one piece of the puzzle. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Open houses have traditionally been one of the best ways for agents to meet new buyer clients. Think about it. You have a steady flow of people walking through the door, many of them unrepresented, many of them just starting their search. That is a great opportunity for an agent to connect, build relationships, and pick up new business. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of how this business works. But it also means the open house isn't always just about selling your home. It's also about generating leads for that agent. So when an open house is being positioned as the main strategy to sell your home, that's where you want to take a step back. It absolutely should be part of the plan, but not the only plan. The real strategy should always come back to pricing your home correctly, making sure it shows well, getting it in front of the right buyers online, and creating enough demand to drive strong offers. The open house can definitely support that, but it should never be the thing that you're relying on to get the job done. This one comes back around every single cycle. We're headed for a market crash. And every time it does, it creates the same reaction. Sellers panic and they rush to list because they think they need to get out before prices drop. Buyers panic and sit on the sidelines because they're waiting for some massive discount that may or may not ever come. And here's the reality. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. Markets don't move in straight lines. They shift, they adjust, they correct. And yes, some markets cool off faster than others. But the idea that there's this one big national switch that flips and everything crashes all at once, that's just not how real estate works. Because real estate is hyper-local. What's happening nationally does not always reflect what's happening in your market, your price range, or even your neighborhood. You can have one city where inventory is building, homes are sitting longer, and prices are softening, while another area nearby is still competitive with homes selling quickly. Even within the same city, you can see completely different conditions depending on the price point, the location, and the property type. So when people make decisions based purely on national headlines, that's where they get into trouble. Headlines are designed to grab attention. Market crash, housing correction, prices falling. Those get clicks, but they don't tell you what's actually happening where you live. And that's what matters. Because if you're a buyer waiting for some dramatic price drop that your agent told you was coming, but it never shows up in your area, you may end up paying more later. And if you're a seller rushing to list out of fear because your agent said a crash is coming, you might leave money on the table because you didn't actually need to move that quickly. The better approach is simple. Focus on your situation, your timeline, your finances, and what's actually happening in your local market, not just what's being talked about nationally. Because fear-based decisions almost always lead to regret. And in real estate, those mistakes can get expensive pretty quickly. And last, this one is not about the market. It's about professionalism. If an agent is bad-mouthing other agents, making up stories, planting doubts, or trying to scare you away from someone else, that's a huge red flag. A real professional does not need to win your business by tearing someone else down. If they are confident in their value, their process, and their experience, that should be enough. The second someone starts playing that game, it tells you a lot about how they operate. Because if they're willing to bend the truth about another agent just to win your business, what makes you think they are suddenly going to become a model of honesty once you hire them? That kind of behavior is not competitive, it is insecure. And honestly, it's a bad look for the entire industry. At the end of the day, there are a lot of great agents out there who do things the right way. But there's also a lot of noise. And if you don't know how to filter through it, it can cost you. So ask questions, ask for data, slow things down when something feels off. And make sure the advice you're getting actually lines up with your goals, not someone else's timeline. Now I'm curious, have you heard any of these or any other bad advice from real estate agents before? Let me know in the comments below. And if this was helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching. I'm George Poporad, and I'll see you in the next video.